Close your eyes for a moment and picture a lemon. Really picture it. The waxy yellow skin, the weight of it in your hand. Now imagine slicing it open and bringing one half up to your mouth. Imagine biting it down. Your mouth did something, right? There was no lemon, there was never a lemon, but your body responded as if there was. This is not a party trick. This is one of the most important things you will ever learn about how a mind works. A brain cannot tell the difference between something that is really happening and something you are vividly imagining. Not consistently, not reliably, sometimes not at all. And once you understand why that is true, you will never look at your thoughts, your fears, your memories, or your dreams the same way again. Here is the first thing you need to know. Your brain is not a camera. It does not record the world as it actually is. It is a prediction machine. Every second of every day, it is running simulations. It is guessing what is coming next based on what has happened before. And when you imagine something vividly enough, you're feeding that simulation engine data it genuinely cannot reject. Neuroscientist Stephen Collison spent decades studying mental imagery. What he found was extraordinary. When you imagine seeing something, the visual cortex at the back of your brain activates in almost exactly the same way it does when you are actually looking at that thing. The same neurons, the same patterns, the same regions lighting up under a brain scanner. The only difference is a matter of degree, not of kind. Real vision is slightly stronger, imagination is slightly dimmer, but the machinery it is identical. Think about what that means. Every time you replay a painful memory, your brain is partially reliving it. Every time you rehearse an argument in your head, your nervous system is partially having that argument. Every time you imagine something going wrong, your body treats that as partial evidence that it already has. This is not a metaphor. This is electrochemical reality, and it goes much deeper than vision. In the 1960s, psychologist Alan Richardson ran a now famous experiment with basketball players. He divided them into three groups. One group practiced free throws physically every day, one group did nothing, and one group only imagined practicing. They sat still, closed their eyes, and visualized themselves shooting free throw after free throw with perfect form. At the end of the experiment, the physical practice group improved by 24%. The group that did nothing improved by nothing, and the group that only imagined practicing improved by a percentage 23 points. 23% just by sitting and thinking. Your muscles do not move during vivid mental rehearsal, but the neural pathways that control them do. The motor cortex fires, the cerebellum updates its models, the synaptic connections between neurons physically strengthen. You are, in a measurable and documented way, training your body with your mind. This is why athletes visualize, why surgeons mentally rehearse procedures, why concert pianists have been shown to improve their playing after only imagining practice sessions, not because of mysticism, but because of neuroscience. But here is where it gets stranger and probably more dangerous. The same mechanism that lets you rehearse success also rehearses failure. It rehearses fear, it rehearses grief. It rehearses the worst version of every scenario you have ever turned over in your mind at 2 in the morning when you couldn't sleep. Your brain does not judge the content of what you imagine, it just processes it. And it processes imagined threats through the same ancient circuitry it uses to process the real ones. The amygdala is a small almond shaped cluster of neurons buried deep inside your brain. It is one of the oldest structures in the vertebrate nervous system. Its job is threat detection, and it is fast, faster than conscious thought. When something triggers it, it fires a signal to your adrenal glands, your heart rate spikes, your breathing shallows, your muscles tense, the stress response activates. Now, here's the problem. The amygdala evolved to detect things in the environment, movement in the bushes, a shadow in your peripheral vision, a sound that should not be there. It did not evolve for a world where the biggest threats live inside your own head. When you imagine something frightening in vivid detail, the amygdala cannot fully distinguish that from real threat. Studies using fMRI brain scanning by Joseph LeDoux at NYU, one of the world's leading researchers on fear circuitry, have shown that imagined fear and real fear share large overlapping regions of activation. The body does not wait for the cortex to verify the threat. It responds first and asks questions later. This is why anxiety is not just uncomfortable, it is physically exhausting. Every catastrophic scenario you run in your mind is a small stress response, a small activation of your flight or fight system. And over time, over thousands of imagined disasters that never happened, your nervous system learns that the world is dangerous. It rewires towards vigilance, towards hyperarousal, towards a baseline of low level threat that feels, after long enough, like just the way things are. You trained it without meaning to, one imagined worst case scenario at a time. But the same mechanism, understood clearly, becomes something else. It becomes a tool. Psychologist Lara Brodsky at UC San Diego has shown that the language you use to describe your experiences physically changes how your brain encodes them. The framing changes the feeling. And if language does this, vivid mental imagery does it even more powerfully. The question is not whether your imagination is affecting your brain. It is, constantly. The question is whether it is doing so in the direction you actually wanted. Here is something almost no one realizes. Your brain has no tense. Memory, imagination, and anticipation all run on the same substrate. When you remember the past, you are partially reconstructing it in the present. When you imagine the future, you are partially experiencing it now. The brain processes time as a kind of continuous present, layered with simulation of things that were and things that might be. Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist at UC Irvine and one of the world's foremost experts on memory, has spent 4 decades demonstrating that human memory is not a recording, it is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you are reassembling it from fragments, and every time you reassemble it, it changes slightly based on your current state, your current beliefs, your current fears. You can implant false memories in people, not through hypnosis or trauma, but simply through suggestion, through repeated imagination, through the act of vividly picturing something that never happened. Think about the implications of that. The memory you are certain of, the one you have told yourself 100 times, the one that shaped you, your beliefs of who you are. Every time you have revisited it, you have altered it. You have been editing the file. And that you that did the editing was not that you who lived the original moment. This is not a flaw in human psychology, it is a feature. Memories need to update. They need to incorporate new information, new context, new understanding. A perfectly preserved memory of your 5-year-old self interpretation of an event would be useless to the adult you are now. The brain reconstructs so that the past stays useful, stays actionable, stays relevant to who you are and who you are becoming now. But it also means the story you carry about your past is partly a story you have written and rewritten and are still writing now. Somewhere between the lemon you bit in your mind and the basketball player who improved without moving and the memory you are certain of but have never fully accessed accurately, there is a single, uncomfortable, and ultimately liberating truth. The hard border you believe exists between what is real and what is imagined is far softer than you think. Your inner world has physical weight, it leaves marks. It changes you in the same neurological currency as the things that actually happen to you. What you rehearse, you become better at. What you fear repeatedly, your body learns to fear. What you remember, you partially choose. And what you imagine, you partially live. The lemon was never in your hand, but the saliva in your mouth was real. So was the signal. So was the response. So was the change. Close your eyes again, not to see a lemon this time, but to ask yourself something that matters. What has your imagination been rehearsing without your permission? And now that you know it is real, what do you want to rehearse instead? Tonight, when you lie awake turning something over in your mind, you will know what your brain is actually doing. It is not thinking, it is practicing. And everything it practices, it gets better at, including this moment right now in which you understand that for the very first time.